So the first thing I wanted to talk about today was learning all of our notes on the fretboard. And while memorization will be helpful in the long run, that's a lot of things to remember right off of the rip. So a better way to do it would be to learn how to figure out what the notes are on the fretboard. And to do that, I brought a little learning aid, a little show and tell is my MIDI controller, but it's got a piano on it. And the main reason why I thought this would be helpful is because a piano is really well laid out. On a typical piano, these would be white keys and these would be black keys, but of course this is a MIDI controller and they opted for a different color scheme. The reason why I bring this out, pianos would typically start in C. So that first note right there is C. It has a white key in between there, meaning it has a sharp. So C, C sharp. Then we would move to the next letter of the alphabet. That would be D, and then D also has a sharp. Moving up, that's E. E does not have one of those keys in the way there. So E does not have a sharp. We go straight to F. And then it would be F, F sharp, G, G sharp. We start over at A sharp. B is the other one that doesn't have the white key there. And so we go straight back to C. Since the guitar is not quite as beautifully laid out, plain and simple, we have to take that into account. Those two notes, E and B, don't have the sharp in it. If I were learning all of the notes, let's use my A string, which, for those of you that are brand new, your guitar is tuned. E is my lowest, fattest string. A, D, G, B, and E. E, A, D, G, B, E. So I'm starting on our A string there. And if we remember to our piano, A does have a sharp. Remember, it's just E and B that don't. So open is A. First fret would then be A sharp. From A, we move to the next letter of the alphabet. So the second fret is B. B is one of those ones that doesn't have a sharp. So then we would go to C. Notice I'm moving just one step. They're called half steps at a time. Just one fret at a time to figure this out. So I was at C. I'd move up another half step. That's to C sharp. Another half step to D. Another half step, D sharp. Then we move up another half step, E. Now remember, E is one of the ones that doesn't have a sharp, so we go from E to F. F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and finally back to A. A is where we started. If you notice, that's where the double dots are. That's my octave. Whatever your open string is, if it's E, the 12th fret is also E. A, D, D, G, G, B, B, and E. Since that high E string is the octave of our lower one, those are the same note. We'll do this on one more string just to make sure that you got it, but we'll do it on our low, fat E string. I always call it my low string. Some people call it the high string because it's high. It's on the top string. I always think of it as the low string because it's literally the lowest note on the guitar, but I hope that's not confusing. However you'd like to refer to it, the big fat E string. If that's E, E is one of those ones that doesn't have a sharp. So, first fret is F. Second fret, F does have a sharp, so it's F sharp. Moving, G, G sharp, A, because we start over on the alphabet, A sharp, there's B, on the 7th fret there, B doesn't have a sharp, so from B, we go to C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. I would definitely recommend, if you're somebody who's just kind of beginning your guitar journey and you're kind of unsure about all this, there's plenty of images online of this kind of stuff, but I would definitely implore you to kind of practice this. Think of a note and try to find it, preferably on each string would be great. Like you could do something like, where are all of my E notes? There's an E there, or I could choose E, and then on my A string, E is there, and then on my D string, he's there. On my G string, he's there. B string, he's there. E. So E, 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 E. That's every single E note on this side of the fretboard. Really handy dandy thing to know how to do and be able to find quickly, especially once you start moving over to some more advanced topics. Part 2, more advanced topics. Today I really wanted to get into relative minors and what the heck that even is, if you guys have heard of that phrase before, or if you've dabbled a little bit in the circle of fifths. You'll typically see that there's, at the top of the circle of fifths, you'll see C and A typically together, and that's because they are relative scales. It means that they're related. They're like cousins, I guess you could say. A good way to show this would be if I were to take C major. So we'll take C major and we'll talk about the notes. C major is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. A minor is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So notice both of those scales, neither one has a sharp nor a flat. They share the exact same notes. And realistically, if you were to play A minor over a C major, it would work. The biggest thing that you have to do is think about what we call our tonal center. You want to make sure that you've got that C played first, because then that's what sticks in your ear, as opposed to A, and then you've got the minor. What does this mean? Well, since they're sharing the same exact notes, it quite literally means that they share the same exact scale shapes as well. I think a really awesome tool for this is to take a look at our pentatonic scales. I would say if you're an intermediate guitar player, most people probably have learned our minor pentatonic shape at some time over the course of our guitar learning. So our minor pentatonic, just to reiterate in case you don't know, in A, which for our beginners, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Starting on the 5th fret of our low E string, that's going to be played on the 5th fret with the index finger. Pinky on the 8th fret of our E string, moving up to the next string, 5th fret, 7th fret, next string, 5th fret, 7th fret, next string, 5th fret, 7th fret, next string, 5th fret, 8th fret, and then our octave, the A. Okay, that is A minor pentatonic. And for those of us that know that, well, duh, Ben. But where I'm going with this is that works splendidly, that pattern shape, for when our song is in the key of A minor. Let's say I wanted to play the song in C major. I could use the same exact pattern here, because I know that C major and A minor are relative scales. I could take that minor pentatonic shape and start it on the C note here. That's going to be 1, 2, 3 frets up from where we started originally in A. So how did I come up with that? How did I deduce that? Well, a relative minor is derived from the sixth degree of whatever the major scale is. Whatever the sixth degree of that scale is that scale's relative minor. So there's two ways that we can find that relative minor using our scale. If I wanted to, I could go for C and run through my major scale, giving each degree a number value, so I can kind of keep track of everything, and I would say C is 1, D 2, E 3, F 4, G 5, A 6. That's my relative scale degree. Another way you could do it is by traveling down. I know in the major scale, if that's C, my seventh is a half step away from that tonic, and the sixth is a whole step away from the seven. So that's the easiest way that I think there is to do it. So for C, there's the seventh, which is B, and A, the six. A minor for that. If I'm in C major, instead of starting on the A minor note there, I start on the C, A, B, C, and I keep the pattern exactly the same. So that's just a really handy way of kind of diving into some relative scales in general. I guess technically C is a relative major to A minor and vice versa. Let's try this in one more key just so you can see how this works. Here's a common one, G, G major. I need to find the relative minor to G. So I would go G is 1, A2, B3, C4, D5, E is my 6. Working backwards, I know that the seventh is right behind it, which is F sharp, and then a whole step behind the 7 is the minor 6, E. So if I wanted to play over E minor, naturally I would do what we all would do. I would do an E minor pentatonic. If I was playing over G major, I could use the same scale shape, but starting, getting that tonal center in our heads on the G. Same exact scale shape, just starting on that different degree, starting on its relative major or relative minor accordingly. Same thing works anywhere. If I wanted to play A major, I just find A, work my way backwards, there's the 7, there's the relative minor, so that's the pentatonic minor shape I need, but I want to start on A major. Hopefully that's something you guys can work with and toss into your playing. Work on your minors. Keep working on the minor pentatonics. Start adding some of these major pentatonics into your playing. I think you guys will definitely find, especially this particular shape, that's definitely that Jimi Hendrix sort of style in position. You guys really enjoyed this? I'll leave a link to the newsletter in the comments. Hopefully this helped out some of the beginners, some of the more intermediate players. Hopefully you guys learned something from this. In the comments, let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll have another live video for you next week. Once again, I'm Ben with Intermediate Guitar. It's been a pleasure. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Toodles.